Every public speaker ought to know that. If every other worker doing anything would learn that, then they would be getting ahead much faster in life. They did a study on the typical American plant, and the person working the line on an hourly basis watched an average of 30 hours of television a week. The person in charge of that line watched an average of 25 hours of television a week. The foreman watched an average of 20 hours of television a week. Are you kind of noticing a little trend here? The plant superintendent watched an average of 15 hours of television a week. The vice president of the plant watched an average of 12 to 15 hours of television a week. The president watched an average of 8 to 12 hours of television a week. The chairman of the board watched an average of 4 to 8 hours of television a week, and 50% of that time they were watching training videos. Now let me ask you a question. What do you think would happen to that person who's watching 30 hours of television a week if they were to take 10 of those hours and get involved in doing what you're doing right now, listening to these tapes, reading good books, attending valuable seminars, getting that education? Is there a chance that they are a victim of circumstances, or is it because they're a victim of inertia? It's easy to go home and sit down in front of the boob tube and, let it dominate or run their life. See, the television doesn't have that much good information. It does some things to you, but the biggest damage television does is what it keeps you from doing. Keeps you from talking to folks, keep you from exercising, keep you from reading, keep you from learning, keep you from associating with other people, developing friendships, and 101 other things. Well, now, what all this leads up to is on the night before, the day before vacation, how many of you got out a little sheet of paper? And you said to yourself, now, self, tomorrow you got to do this and this and how many of you literally did that? Now, in its simplest form, that is goal setting. I do a lot of public seminars where I'm fortunate enough to be on the program with some real celebrities in life. I mean, President Ford, President Bush, Schwarzkopf, Colin Powell. Is that okay for name dropping? I mean, people of that nature. Now, don't misunderstand. I don't classify them as buddies, okay? I'd love to. Don't misunderstand. I am proud of the fact that the last time I saw Colin Powell, he did give me a big old hug, and since he's one of my heroes, I kind of like that. But anyhow, I do a lot of those public seminars. Now, they did a study, and who is they? They is David Jensen, the Chief Administrative Officer for the Crump Institute for Biological Imaging, Department of Pharmacology, UCLA School of Medicine. Now, with a title like that, you know he is somebody, don't you, okay? Well, he's a good friend of mine, too. He did a study on the people who came to the seminars. It represents a broad section of American industry. Everybody from psychiatrists and truck drivers to school teachers and household executives, salespeople, entrepreneurs, business owners, all kinds of people. And those who set goals and developed a plan of action to get there earned an average of $7,401 a month. Those who did not set goals earned an average of $3,397 a month. It's over $4,000 a month difference. Now, here's my question. How many of you, as you listen to this tape, I want you to answer the question to yourself. Do you have time to invest another 10 minutes a day to pick up another $4,000 a month? Now, here's the rest of the story. The survey also showed that not only did they earn the additional money, but they were happier and healthier and got along better with the folks at home. People who know where they're going and have a plan to get there are easier to get along with. That's what this really does boil down to. You set those goals. And then you got organized. In other words, you said, well, now, first of all, I'm going to do this one. You kind of lay it out, kind of see your hand, all right? Now, you get organized. Now, organization is important. Our controller at our company is well organized. He even proofreads the Xerox copies we send out. I mean, she's detail-oriented is what I'm saying, okay? And then once you got it organized, you accepted responsibility. You said, this is what I am going to do. You accept the responsibility. Now, that's something a lot of us don't like to do, and it goes back to Adam and Eve. You remember the story. They were in the Garden of Eden. God gave it all to them, said, you can have everything you want. There's a tree right in the middle of the garden. Leave it alone. Don't eat it. You don't do that. Well, you know what happened. They ate the fruit on the tree. To this day, a lot of people say it was the apple in the tree that caused man's problems. Not so. It was the pear on the ground that created the problem. Well, you know what happened? God came walking in the garden that evening and he said, Adam, where are you? Now, God knew where Adam was, but he wanted Adam to say, over here, Lord. Adam, did you eat that fruit? Now, God knew the answer, but he wanted Adam to confess up. But Adam did the manly thing and has passed it on to every generation since. He said, Lord, let me tell you about that woman. Lord said, Eve, did you eat that fruit? She kept the ball rolling. She said, Lord, let me tell you about that snake. And, of course, snake didn't have a leg to stand on. Now, for the benefit of you Bible students, I know theologically I don't have a leg to stand on with that last statement either. But here's the point I'm making. You don't have a leg to stand on. I don't have a leg to stand on when we constantly blame other people and the past. Now, realistically, if somebody fouled up your past, come on, you're not going to give them permission to ruin your future, are you? What we got to do is we got to get serious about doing something about our future. We got to get serious about doing things with our lives. Now, let me go ahead and say something you might already have noticed as this kind of breaks down. I speak and write at the 7th grade, 9th month level. Now, the reason I do that deliberately is because I learned a few years ago that if you kept it there, that even the college professors would be able to follow right along with you and understand what you're saying. And see, college professors are people. But like my good friend, Dr. Steve Franklin, a college professor at Emory University, says, you know, Zig, the great truths in life are simple. You don't need 3 moving parts and 4 syllables for it to be significant. Think about it for a moment, Zig. He said there are only 3 pure colors on the face of this earth. But look at what Michelangelo did with those colors. There are only 10 mathematical digits, but look at what Einstein did with them. Only 7 notes, but look what Chopin and Beethoven and Vivaldi did with those 7 notes. Look at what Elvis did with 2. I mean, it just doesn't have to be that significant. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, delivered after the Battle of Gettysburg, which, as you know, took place during the War of Northern Aggression. It just depends on where you got your education. I mean, 262 words, that's all there are in that address. 202 of them, 1 syllable. Simple, direct. John 3:16, 25 words. 21 of them, 1 syllable. I believe in keeping it simple. I believe in making it so plain that nobody really can miss what is being said. Now, you got organized, and you accepted the responsibility, and you made the commitment. Now, you know, most people are about as committed as a kamikaze pilot on his 39th mission. I mean, they just don't really take it seriously. I well remember January 7th, 1992, I rode past the Plano, Texas Recreation Center. That's where I do my exercises and weightlifting. Had to stop the weightlifting. I was bulking up, and a lot of folks thought I was on steroids. So, you know, we can't have that. Now, the reason I rode past was because there was not a parking space. I was back over there the next day, and this time I squeezed in, but in the Nautilus room, they had lines behind every machine, 3, 4, 5, 6 deep. Well, you can't exercise 3 minutes and rest 15. So I went back outside to the desk and I asked the young man, I said, Sean, what on earth's going on? Well, Sean kind of laughed. He said, oh, Zig, he said, don't give it a thought. He said, give us about 3 weeks. This will be back to normal. These are our New Year's resolution people. Now, you see, a New Year's resolution is really not anything on earth but a New Year's confession. That's all it is. I confess I got to lose some weight. I confess I got to get better organized. I confess I got to get more education. I confess I got to spend more time with my family. I confess I got to quit smoking. I mean, that's all. And the confession lasts as long as it's convenient, involves no trouble, takes no time, involves no pain, and they remember it. But now, having said that, let me also go ahead and say that that confession is extraordinarily important, because it can be step one. And you got to have step one before you can take step two. Now, where it gets to be important is this. If you will tell enough people, I'm going to quit smoking, I'm going to get an education, I'm going to get better organized, and you repeat it enough times, all of a sudden, one day, it finally breaks through. You know, a message goes 24,000 miles around the world in less than a tenth of a second. Sometimes it takes years for it to get that last 1/16th of an inch. You know what I'm talking about, don't you, okay? One day, though it finally gets through, you confess it enough time, and then you verbally stomp your foot and say, I'm going to do it. Now you've made a decision. And the way the mind works is really very simple. Once you've made a decision, then you say to yourself, now, self, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to get yourself together a plan, feller. Or lady, you got to get a plan of action. Whether you build a house, want to build a better marriage, get a better education, lose 37 pounds, whatever it is, if you have made a decision, start with the confession, moves to a decision, then you automatically say, hey, I got to get a plan of action. Now, once you've got a logical plan of action that you believe in, then you say, I can do it. Now, you've made the commitment. Now, why is commitment so important? Regardless of what area of life you're in. If you've made a commitment, whether it's to get the education, maintain the